Wouldn't it be one?
There's nobody coming, and there's nobody out there!
Hi. I have a delivery for Iris Chan.
The antivirus, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If we don't include the Impact Smart hard drive, we can ship today.
No. That satellite has to have an Impact Smart hard drive.
The all-new Toshiba Satellite series. We thought of everything.
I'm John Wayne. Is there any better or equal hope in the world, Lincoln asked, than the ultimate justice of the people? We Americans believe there is not. The stonework of our national life is made of this belief. We believe in many things, but this belief that man is a responsible being bears out our own unique stamp as a nation. As a people, we are active and often noisy. We are industrious, oftentimes to the bafflement of ourselves and our friends. We relax as hard as we work. We are proud. We are sentimental. Beauty is of national concern to us. For some of us, its pursuit is a deadly serious pastime. The rest of us simply enjoy the results. Some of our national spirit shows up in the monuments we erect, the large ones and the small ones. It rings through the music which animates us.
Attaboy, Homer, swing it! Second comes out and lead to the fourth, 4 hands out in the circle, swing the opposite way, and you keep the gal behind you.
We have, on occasion, some difference of feeling. At other times, we are united. We are all these things and many more, but above everything else, we are free. We believe in the ultimate justice which we as free men can create. Our heritage of freedom is our most priceless possession. Men before us have died to keep it alive, and men in our times have done the same. But although men have died to preserve it, and may die again, the glory of this heritage is the vision of life that it has given us. A life of dignity and nobility of spirit, such as men have never before been enriched by in the long march through the history they have recorded. There is a phrase which recurs in our national documents, the literature of our story as a people, which points to the source of our belief in individual freedom, and defines perhaps better than any other the nub of the conflict between the opposing systems of values which sweep the world today. That phrase is, "This nation under God." That phrase and others like it set the standard of our concept of man. As a creature of God, man is a being with dignity and conscience, with the ability to determine right from wrong and the obligation to act on that right. From this belief in man as a responsible being, flow the beliefs in his other qualifications which we accept, usually even without bothering to think about them, as parts of that vague condition which we call the American way.
This is Mr. Montgomery. I met him a few weeks ago in New York.
Oh, how are you?
You live here?
Yes.
Well, maybe you know what a zombie is.
When a person dies and is buried, it seems there are certain voodoo priests who have the power to bring him back to life.
How horrible.
It's worse than horrible because a zombie has no will of his own. You see them sometimes walking around blindly with dead eyes, following orders, not knowing what they do, not caring.
You mean like Democrats?
When people talk about zombies today, they're not just referencing folklore or fiction anymore. You know, they're actually not even talking about zombies. No, now it's become something else. It's like a weaponized metaphor. It's a way to describe somebody who disagrees with you. And this isn't just something that's coming from the liberal left. It's coming from everybody, you know, including me, including us. We've often referred to the masses as zombies. I mean, I know I have, you know, I've said that they're brainwashed and programmed and blind. And honestly, it's not wrong. I mean, zombie is a pretty accurate way to describe the state of our culture. We were all there during the pandemic, watching thousands of people wearing their masks and afraid to breathe, lining up for injections, standing 6 feet apart, and acting like actors in a dystopian horror movie, just mindlessly complying with the demands of a system that openly mocks God and glorifies rebellion, and simultaneously demanding complete obedience, you know. So let's be real, there is truth in that observation, but it's not the whole truth. Because as soon as we label somebody else as a zombie, they turn around and label us the same way. I mean, to them, we're the brainwashed ones. We're the religious extremists, the science deniers, you know, the conspiracy theorists, the fearmongers, the dangers to society. To them, we're the ones who are infected with dangerous misinformation. So think about that. The zombie metaphor has become like a two-way mirror. One where everybody sees themselves as awake and the other side is lost.
The real zombie apocalypse, liberalism.
New York Times columnist Paul Krugman, his latest op-ed titled, "All the President's Zombies."
He joins us to talk about his brand new book, Obama Zombies, How the Liberal Machine Brainwashed My Generation.
During a zombie outbreak, society would collapse, the government would implode, and we would all have to retreat to our homes surrounded by our guns. That sounds pretty right-wing to me.
Or it sounds like a town hall.
Because you guys watching me right now, you're not zombies, you're watching me because I'm delivering commentary.
Republicans bring us a new talking point on health care reform. Democrats will turn you and your loved ones into zombies.
And in that reflection, both sides begin to believe that the other must be stopped, or silenced, isolated, deplatformed, you know, censored, or maybe eventually eradicated. And that's where the real danger of this overplayed narrative starts to come into focus. Because I believe that that's the real agenda behind the zombie programming. I mean, that's the effect of years of conditioning, training us to see other people not as human beings made in the image of God, but as dangerous vectors of infection, you know, whether that's a real virus or a fake virus, or even a so-called mind virus, just having the wrong ideology. Because what happens when society is taught that somebody else's worldview, or their words or beliefs, or maybe even their presence, is a threat to public health? That somebody with a different ideology or different politics than you is a threat to national security? Well, you already know the answer. It's mass dehumanization. And once you strip the humanity from that person, then violence doesn't really feel like violence anymore. You know, it doesn't feel so cruel. In fact, it feels justified. You know, suddenly it's not murder, it's extermination, right? It's not evil, it's necessary. And no matter what side of the political fence that you're on, we've all been taught to see each other not as brothers and sisters or bearers of God's image, but as threats, as enemies, you know, as brainwashed zombies who are infected with the wrong ideas. And that is the terrifying genius of the zombie metaphor, because it strips away the soul before the body is ever even harmed. You know, and it gives you permission to hate your neighbor because you stop seeing them as a human.
Charlie Kirk was in the neck.
Charlie Kirk just got shot. Seen somebody just took a shot at one of the Fancy Fast's favorite 5-mile-wide mouthpieces, Charles Chuckle Kirk.
And this training hasn't just happened in theory. I mean, it's been drilled into us through countless movies and TV shows and books and video games with surround sound and cinematic realism and photorealistic graphics.
They used to be our fans, but then they turned into zombies.
Look at them! Oh my!
We cheer for headshots. We rack up kill counts, and we survive wave after wave of enemies that look like our friends and our neighbors and our own families, because that's what they were just before they became infected, right? But now that they are infected, they're fair game. And again, I say this as somebody who enjoys video games, you know, and scary movies and all that stuff. But it doesn't take a genius to realize that the more we play and the more we watch and the more we laugh at this casual simulation of senseless killing, and as the line between entertainment and reality gets more and more blurry, the easier it will become to forget where the fiction ends and reality begins.
What would you do with that money?
I'd love to take a tropical holiday.
Be careful with your skin tone.
No, I get it. Because I'm a zombie.
I get it.
Yeah, that's funny.
All my undead, we are back.
I'll see you out there.
See you out there.
And don't take it personally.
You could get a refund advance of up to $1,200.
Thanks to myeducation.com, I found just the right program for me. And now I have the life and career I've always wanted.
And of course, I know that some people are going to laugh at that idea, that fictional storylines are being used to train the public, or that zombie movies could be part of a deeper agenda to condition us. But frankly, I'm not afraid of being laughed at by a culture that's already hypnotized. You know, I'm not ashamed to be mocked by a society that's so dumbed down that they don't even know what they're watching anymore. You know, people don't stop to think. They don't ask questions, you know. People don't consider the content that they consume. They just absorb it. And we're surrounded nowadays in this society by people who build their entire identity around celebrity gossip and TikTok trends. People who genuinely believe that their worldview is their own, when in reality it's just been downloaded like an app. And they scoff at the idea that there could be a coordinated agenda behind it all. You know, they can't fathom that entertainment could serve any purpose beyond entertainment. As if Hollywood's only job is to make money, you know, and to give people what they want. But no one ever stops to ask, why do people want that in the first place? Well, the truth is that the industry doesn't exist to entertain, it exists to influence. And don't get me wrong, sex and violence will always sell. I mean, and there's plenty I could say about the corruption and indulgence of modern entertainment, but at this point, it's not even about entertainment anymore. It's just indoctrination. And that makes perfect sense once you understand who the real ruler of this world is. Because Satan isn't just corrupting culture, he owns culture. And the entertainment industry is his pipeline, you know, just a nonstop stream of godless ideology pumped straight into the bloodstream of society. That's why everything is radically progressive and sexually confused and morally relative, anti-family, anti-God, pro-death, anti-life. It's all the same, and it's all we ever see. And as a satanic strategy, it's been unbelievably effective. I mean, just look around, because the results speak for themselves. That's why actors have become activists, and that's why pop stars are now political influencers. Because the moment that Hollywood starts preaching something, the masses start believing it.
Stay home. I mean, everybody. I mean, we got this virus, this pandemic.
See, the important thing is that you stay at home because there's a curfew now.
We all need to stay home. We need to stop the spread of this virus, and we can only do it together.
The public trusts celebrities when they are actually active and excited about getting vaccinated. There is no question that that has an impact on the general public's ability to understand that, look, if they're doing it, maybe we should do it.
Ryan Reynolds nominated me to help spread the word to Canadians to help plank the curve. Stay inside, wash your hands, just don't leave the house.
And while the agenda might seem obvious to some of us, the majority still can't see it. And in a way, they're honestly not much different than those Haitian voodoo zombies that we talked about earlier. Only instead of being drugged into submission, they're being enslaved by their favorite forms of media. They're slaves to the television or smartphone screens. You know, there are so many people today who don't know how to form a single original thought. You know, they don't even have their own preferences. Even their opinions were planted. And their imaginations were shaped. I mean, the movies, the music, the sports, the politics, the fashion, the trends, on and on and on. It was all introduced to them in childhood and then reinforced through repetition. And now they walk around confidently talking about the latest Netflix series or the score from last night's football game, as if that matters. You know, when they pat each other on the back and find their identity in entertainment, believing that their interests are organic when in reality they've all been engineered and conditioned to confuse influence with identity. So, I'm sorry, I know I was kind of ranting there and maybe got a little off script, but I just feel like that needs to be said, because at some point, when a theme keeps getting repeated over and over again, across generations, across platforms, and across every form of media that you can imagine, well, it stops looking so much like entertainment and it starts looking like propaganda. And that kind of blind absorption is exactly what's happening with this fictional zombie narrative too. You know, the settings change, the characters change, and the rules may vary, but the formula had generally stayed the same. You know, the zombies break in, morality breaks down, religion gets mocked, children are trained to kill, the family unit is decimated, and every man is forced to choose between loyalty and survival. But what's crazy is that it didn't just stop with the late-night horror marathons and R-rated movies. No, eventually, it came for the kids. You know, suddenly it wasn't just grown-ups watching heads get bashed in on screen. Zombies were now showing up in elementary schools, you know, and in comic books and Saturday morning cartoons, and on it goes. And then, of course, there's the video games. Entire generations of children being raised in digital war zones, you know, training their reflexes to kill without hesitation, to aim for the head, pull the trigger, and move on, and just shoot down these endless waves of enemies that look human, but aren't classified as human. You know, and just casually teaching kids to kill their former neighbors and their friends and their family members and to feel nothing while doing it. But anyways, that rabbit hole goes deep, so I'm not even going to touch on it anymore here. But rest assured, we will get into that later, this video game stuff, and when we do, you'll never be able to see it the same way again. Because what's going on when one of the darkest and most violent and disturbing ideas in pop culture history has now become family friendly? You know, and I'm not trying to sensationalize this. I mean, it's not like zombies are the first monsters to ever be rebranded as harmless over time. You know, we've seen vampires and mummies and werewolves become commonplace in family entertainment. But even compared to those, there's no other fictional creature that has impacted our culture quite like the zombie has. And I'm here to argue that there's a good reason for that, you know, or maybe a horrible reason, depending on how you look at it.
Let's get it. Bash her head. Bash her head.
Because once we accept the idea of a zombie apocalypse as just another entertainment trope, we don't ask why this concept has been fed to us for generations. We don't pause to consider what it might be preparing us to accept. And I think it goes without saying that when you mix this level of heartless violence with the divided and volatile state of the world right now, where everything is politicized, and where people are split into tribes and enemies and opponents, where fear and hatred have become social defaults, well, it just doesn't paint a pretty picture, especially when you add spiritual warfare to the mix, because the zombie narrative kind of parallels the fall of man. It's like watching Romans 1 unfold in real time. A culture that has rejected its creator and now been handed over to depravity, and become filled with every kind of wickedness and violence and heartlessness that you could imagine.
And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who, knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them.
And I think it's a fitting comparison because even the Bible describes the unsaved man as a kind of walking dead, alive in the flesh but dead in the spirit. But in this world today, this concept of spiritual death has been totally lost, and the idea of resurrection has become completely distorted. And that's the kind of world that will exist in the last days. Not necessarily a world where the dead rise from their graves, but a world without discernment and without compassion. A world without God. A world where people have been trained, literally trained, to shoot the infected without flinching. And where something as simple as a disease can justify lockdowns and checkpoints and absolute government control. Where killing can be excused as long as it's for the greater good. Maybe we've already lived through the dress rehearsal. We've seen how fear can be weaponized. We were all there during the pandemic when we saw people being split into safe and unsafe, or essential and non-essential, and we watched neighbors turn against each other all in the name of public health. We saw how millions were pressured, if not outright forced, into experimental injections, not because they were sick, but because they were told it was the only way to move forward. And let's be real, all that stuff that we saw unfold during the pandemic, it was really sort of familiar. It looked a lot like something straight out of a zombie movie. Maybe what we once saw as a cliché horror narrative was actually a blueprint, branded into the minds of adults and children alike. You see, the purpose of this video, Chapter 1, is just to lay the groundwork. But as we move forward, we're going to take the zombie narrative far beyond the realm of fiction and folklore and drag it straight into reality, into a world where millions of dollars are being poured into life extension technology and human resurrection research, where Silicon Valley elites and biotech firms are openly chasing digital immortality and synthetic consciousness, where viruses are engineered, genes are manipulated, and synthetic life is created inside high-security laboratories, all with little to no oversight. You see, we're living in a world where military agencies and government institutions have actually drafted real-world strategies to combat hordes of infected humans, where zombie preparedness drills and CDC campaigns and Pentagon simulations aren't just Halloween jokes, no, they're protocol. And we're going to expose those headlines. We're going to follow the money, and we will peel back the mockery to reveal a disturbing reality, that this zombie narrative is actually a mask for something very real, dragging mankind towards a future that's far more horrifying than anything Hollywood ever imagined. Why are emergency responders and law enforcement being trained to handle zombie outbreaks? Why is taxpayer money being used on drills that simulate the collapse of society due to a viral apocalypse? And why has the mainstream media spent decades publishing articles that speculate on the scientific plausibility of zombies, all while telling us that it's just a joke? Why normalize the mass panic if there's nothing to prepare for?
Dozens of military, law enforcement, first responders, and actors battled against the so-called zombie apocalypse, part of a 5-day counter-terrorism summit organized by Halo Corporation.
We were told that the zombie apocalypse wasn't real. And maybe that's true. But if you ask me, the war has already begun. Because the real Walking Dead, they're not monsters climbing out of the dirt. They're clocking in for work. They're scrolling through their phones. They're walking dogs, waving to neighbors, raising kids, sitting in church pews, even standing behind the pulpit. They smile, they vote, they breathe, but inside they're already gone. And in the last days, when the love of many grows cold, when truth is traded for comfort, and when brother turns against brother in the name of survival, the Walking Dead won't look like monsters. They'll look like me and you.